So I thought I'd take a look at where we are with relatively inexpensive mixing consoles for musical theater in 2024. All these consoles are less than $10,000. Most are well within the budget of a small to medium size community theater, or even maybe equity waiver if you're in Los Angeles. So back in 2013, Behringer came out with the X32, and it's still around. I run into a lot of venues, or actually production companies using these, sometimes two of them chained together. Usually the first one's handling the mics and the second one's handling the orchestra. And I guess if you've got the space for two consoles, it's still an economical solution. The Dante cards are cheap. The snakes are cheap, the S16. Theater Mix gets you over the 100 cue limit of the X32. Automates assignment of mics to DCAs, changes the colors of the DCAs. You mix on DCAs for musicals. You can't customize the faders. Theater Mix will customize the DCAs for you, and that's pretty much the extent of it. But it's still only a 32 channel board. Doesn't matter how many snakes you attach to it, the DSP's only got 32 channels. And that's really where the value is for me, is how many channels you get for your dollar. In fact, I've got a little calculation over here, the cost per channel. All of the expressions are at 54 channels, performers at 64, the SQ series max out at 48. And I even bought an Expression 1 just to use for small gigs or personal stuff. It's just a really good deal. The only problem with Soundcraft is where they're headed. We don't know, especially after the Samsung purchase of Harman. Even Harman shut down the Soundcraft UK office back in 2015 maybe? I'd have to check my notes. So 2012 was when the X32 was released. Then 2013, the Soundcraft Expression was released. In 2016, Harman closed the Soundcraft facility in Potters Bar, England. And then in 2017, Allen Heath came out with the SQ. I feel a lot of things are kind of moving towards Allen and Heath, away from Soundcraft. In fact, some of the staff from Soundcraft have moved over to Allen and Heath. The only issue I have with the Allen and Heath is the price point, and the cue limit is still pretty low. I mean, on all the Soundcraft Expression performers, like the SI series is 1,000 cues. Allen Heath's only 300, and plus on top of that, Theater Mix for the Allen Heath is not free. I've had probably around, or maybe a little bit more than 300 cues in some shows on the board. So I find that a little limiting. I guess you could have a separate show file for Act 2 and load that during intermission, but I mean, that can't be that big of a deal for them to fix. It's just a little bit of memory allocation. Hopefully they'll look into that. The other issue is the price. They're a lot more expensive, especially when you consider that they don't even have LCR panning in any of the models. X32 has something they claim is LCR panning, but if you read online, there's some issues with, there's still some sound in the LR mix, even if you're panned full center. The way LCR panning should work is if you're fully left, you're in the left speaker only. If you're halfway between left and center, it's only in those two speakers, 50-50. If you're in the center, it's only in the center speaker. If you're halfway between center and right, it's 50-50 in those two, and then all the way right is just in that one. That's the way it's supposed to work, but it's not quite that on the X32. It's unclear if it's any better on the Performer. It looks like they have some kind of LCR panning width adjustment, so maybe that lets you set your preference. I haven't played with it. Pretty much like the SI and the SQ are pretty similar in that there's different frame sizes available for fader count. Doesn't affect the maximum number of channels, but it usually affects the number of physical inputs, which might prevent you from having to go to a snake later or sooner. Sorry. Outputs are fairly similar. On the SQ, it seems to have a little bit less based on the frame size. Digital scribble strips, I don't know if I care. I mean, I just used console tape. Sort of a big thing for some people to use these boards for bands. I certainly haven't needed this feature for an orchestra. I don't know, maybe I should look into it. Is sidechain compression support. The ability to duck the bass when the kick is hit. But really we're talking about a $150 piece of outboard gear that it's only gonna be on one instrument. I don't know if I could justify the price difference between an Expression 1 and an SQ5 of $1,000 for that feature, especially when I'm getting a lower total channel count. Mixes are pretty similar, a little bit less on the SQ. Matrices, also surprisingly less on the SQ, a lot more on the X32. I've never really needed more than one, but I could see, maybe needing a couple. DCAs are the big difference between the Expression and the other models. I've never needed them. I've just mixed on Submasters. It's the same idea. The only difference is you're not affecting the post-fader contribution to any mixes. I think you can deal with that. I think there's other ways to do it. I wouldn't get too hung up on mixing on DCAs. Price point, and then we talk about expansion here. On the SI series, you can only get a 64-channel Dante card, and they are expensive. But I've been using that. Dante is, to me, like so important, not just for QLab, sending sound effects to the board, but the fact that I can use these inexpensive Yamaha TO1608 D2s for stage boxes. Recording the show to multi-channel with Reaper is just critical. And I'm even looking at getting the EW DX Dante Sennheiser receivers. I love Dante. You can't go without it. You can get either the 32 or the 64 channel on the SQ, and I think it's only a 32 channel on the X32, which makes sense because it's only a 32 channel board. You don't need theater mix on the SI series from Soundcraft because of the 1,000 Qs. Never had a problem. So that's where we're at. I'll put this spreadsheet up in the comments.